Alright, yo, what's up guys? So welcome back. The next archetype we are discussing is Enneacraft. It's a new pendulum-based archetype. It's going to be released, or is released here in the TCG in Phantom Revenge, so the new set. Definitely take a look at the pinned comment again for the giveaway. Huge shout out to TCG Vision again for sponsoring the video. I will leave a link to the channel, the card market, in the video description, so thanks Yella, as always. It has potential because it's a super annoying archetype, and I think because, you know, it's pendulums, and very similar to, you know, pendulum cards in the past, they have so much card text, and there might be opponents who are not aware to at least how to play against this particular deck. So you, as a more experienced Enneacraft player, you can definitely capitalize on that, because like look at this, like the wall of text on every Enneacraft card, that might be a bit overwhelming for some opponents. So again, you're able to capitalize on that particular part. What's the gimmick of the deck? The gimmick of the deck is that all of those smaller monsters, they are basically a Clifford Scout. So you can activate them in Pendulum Scale and then pay 900, so not unlike Scout, what does it pay 800 to search? The little ones, the level ones, you can pay 900 to reveal 3 Enneacraft cards, and then your opponent picks a random, at least one of them, and you can add it to the hand. So they are searches, all of them, and that's once per turn, so that's important already. Again, you can, you know, put essentially both in the scale. The most important thing is that as soon as you use one of their effects, depends on which one, it locks you into only being able to special summon into a face down defense position. Again, they all have the capability to reveal themselves in the hand and then special summon one monster from your hand into defense position face down to your field. The cool gimmick of the deck is that you don't need to special summon the same monster you just revealed. So you can like reveal Yugioh, for example, and then special summon this one, for example. So the mind games are kind of strong for this deck, and that's again a strength of this, to keep your opponent in the dark of which monster you're dropping to the field. Okay, so, you know, let's dig in for the monsters. The level ones are fairly straightforward. You definitely want to make, I guess, 12 of them. So all of them at maximizing, you know, maximizing potential, all of them at 3. Yugioh, all of them, again, can search another card. So that means this deck is super weak to draw on Lockbird. So rule number 1 of this deck, always play around draw on Lockbird. So this one, again, you want to get the smaller monsters, I guess, on the field as soon as possible. You know, reveal and then special summon them to the field. And depends on which one. You have the capability to flip them face up. That counts during your first turn as well. But there are some activation requirements. This first one, your Yugioh, probably one of the better ones. You can only flip this one face up and use its search effect if your opponent activates a monster card in hand. Nip hand traps, essentially. And then, you know, it will give you a search. So do this before draw, right? And on top of this, they also all have a flip effect. This one is a man-eater bug, essentially. So again, these are the ones you want to get out as soon as possible. So 3, definitely a staple. The next one is just a staple as well. Again, you want to get it to the field, face down defense position, and as soon as your opponent adds a card to their main deck, right, searches a card, for example, flip it face up to search a card. So all of them are, again, searches. Very similar effect as the previous one. So again, the kind of staple for this particular deck. You want to get it out as soon as possible. Plus, this one, whenever your opponent, or at least whenever this one is flipped face up, it's basically a light force sword. So it banishes a random card from your opponent's hand until the end phase. So again, kind of nifty. The next one is Tromaria. Again, not going to butcher their names, but this is the one you want to get out as soon as possible face down. And as soon as your opponent activates a card effect to special summon a monster, you can flip it face up and then search a card, essentially. Search an Enneacraft card from your deck. So again, quite nifty, right? Plus, this one also, when flipped face up, is basically an effect failure. So keep that in mind, all of those beneficial effects. So this one, essentially, is also a staple at 3, because again, they all have those, you know, like the Clifford Scout effects. You want to main deck all of them, basically at maximum value. The last one is Ocneria, also level 1, and this one is essentially a pot of Avarice, up to 3 cards you can send back to the deck. Plus, at the same time, whenever your opponent tries to manipulate something in your banished pile or graveyard, you can flip it face up to, you guessed it, to search. So that's it for the little guys. Now, let's take a look at the big bosses with the deck. It depends a little bit on which hybrid you're playing, but the first two are probably just a 3-off because they are that good. This is probably the best one. Mar, let's just call it Mar. Again, you have the capability to special summon these bosses to the field. They also have a pendulum effect, right, with the counters, the tokens, more of that in a few moments because of the burn damage. And the big boys, they don't search, but they let you pop an opponent's monster depending on the attack stat. So, to the effect. Again, you want to get Mar out probably first, because when Mar, and that only counts during your turn, not your opponent, it's an omni negation. So as soon as your opponent activates any card effect on field, you can flip over Mar, negate the card effect, and at the same time Book of Moon all of your opponent's cards. So that's really, really nifty. So this is essentially, sounds strange, but a board breaker. That sounds nifty, right? That's Mar. The next one, Pixea, is also ridiculous, kind of ridiculous boss monster as well. This one prevents targeting, but you want to have this one out as soon as possible again, because as soon as your opponent wants to target one of your cards, you can flip over Pixea, and then Pixea states you can negate the effect, and I think destroy as well. And then your opponent, at least then you banish one card from their hand. So that's actually an insane card. And keep in mind, like these negations, these cards, they are not once per turn. So with this deck, you have the capability to bounce them back to the hand and just, reveal and then special summon them again. And basically reset their effects. So again, quite nifty, and probably one of the reasons why this deck has some potential in the future. So 3 Mar, 3 Pixea, the big bosses. The other two are okay. Okay, like Leon, I currently have as a 2-off, but like in all honesty, it might just be fine as a 1-off again, because it's searchable, highly searchable, and this one, when flipped, bounces up to 3 cards. That's pretty nifty. The last one prevents stuff from being destroyed, and that could be important, looking at Duster, Darkle, Raigeki, and stuff like that. Plus, this one could also be important because of its, I guess, floodgate effect to give more burn damage, depending on what your opponent does. And, keep in mind, again, like the counters on the scales could be important because of the field spell, but more of the field in a few moments. That's basically it for the monster lineup. So the spells. The first one is the field spell. I remember playtesting this deck with only one field spell, but the field spell is not the best field spell, like looking at other archetypes, but it's essentially for the archetype, because it has 2 ways of bouncing stuff. Again, once per turn, you can bounce any Enneacraft monster back to your hand, and it counts up to 1, 2, 3, or 4, or whatever. And on top of this, whenever your Enneacraft is flipped face up, you have the capability to bounce it back to your hand, for example. So again, quite nifty to potentially reset their effects. Plus, it's the field spell that whenever you have like both Enneacraft and your extra pendulum scales with the counters, right? Whenever an Enneacraft is flipped face up, it's the field spell that causes your opponent to, at least that gives them the burn damage, and that can rank up really fast. Like potential FTK, that's definitely possible, but I don't think that's the consistent way of playing the deck. Release is another essential key card, basically a searcher. So again, once per turn, upon activation, you can directly activate any Enneacraft pendulum from your deck in your pendulum scale. So it's essentially another searcher. Plus it also has a graveyard effect, just banish it and then take one of your Enneacrafts from your extra deck and take it back to the hand. So it's a nifty card. Essentially, any pendulum deck wants this kind of support, right? And then last but not least, this is a card that I didn't playtest in my previous, at least in my testing video from a couple of months ago, because it wasn't revealed back then, but this is essentially their Destiny draw. It lets you mulligan your stuff on field or in hand and draw the same number of cards. And at the same time, if your opponent does something like summon a monster, you can banish it from the graveyard, and then depends on what you want to do. Flip something face up, or special summon like a Enneacraft from your hand face down during their turn. So again, quite nifty. It gives the deck more ways to disrupt them during their turn. So I think definitely a 3-off staple. Then last, there is not that much space for generic staples, board breakers, or hand traps. I don't think this deck needs hand traps. Might sound strange, but there's not that much space for that. But there are, there's a couple of cards you definitely could main deck. I have Nip in here, 2 or 3, currently 3, but it's up to you, because again, you keep your monsters face down, so they're unaffected by Nip. They cannot be tributed by Nip. First, before one of the new spells was revealed, I had Desires in here, I have Desires in here over Extra Extravagance, because again, I don't have an extra deck. You could in a few moments, but again, Extravagance is there, but you already have a draw card. So I think I could go for Desires over Extravagance to, you know, force out Ash or essentially give you more draws. Sol and Luna, it's basically an upgraded Book of Moon, you know, put something face up, put something face down, again, more disruption, and then last, this is my favorite, like the last 3 cards of this deck, it gives me some Labyrinth vibes, but that's Karma Cannon, again, your big Book of Eclipse, puts everything face down and all the links will be sent to the graveyard. Again, basically reset your stuff, so quite nifty this card. Might be a 2-off, might be a 3-off, you know, which build you're playing. So this means we're running 40 cards, but again, you have other options. So I already showed the Extravagance as a potential option. Again, you're not using your normal summon. Again, we had 40 cards sharp, but again, this level 4 is also an option. Again, upon summon, it searches a flip, but you know, it gives your opponent more ways to interact, and you want your opponent to interact with your Enneacraft stuff. So I don't think this is a good card to main deck. But, I mean, it's up to you, but, you know, it could definitely have a place in the main deck. And speaking of no normal summon, I remember playtesting the archetype with Ra's Fear Mode in the main deck. Because, again, you're not using your normal summon and going second. You can just keep your normal summon for Sphere Mode and give them Sphere Mode. And then, you know, reveal, special, etc. That's nifty, because again, you can't special summon unless it's face down if you use their effects. So I think Ra's Fear Mode definitely could have a chance of being used in the main deck. And then last, another option in the main deck, or even maybe side deck, I guess, but I don't see a reason, yeah, maybe, to side deck is Zaborg. So there's a way to play Zaborg, because again, you don't use your normal summon, more Zaborg, and again, use like any generic extra deck cards. Sure, you have an extra deck with generic stuff, just in case. You're probably not using it, but again, if you're playing Zaborg, you know, you can play like any generic synchros, exceeds, fusions that capitalize on Zaborg's effect when they are sent to the graveyards. And you know, you're nuking your opponent's extra deck in the process. So essentially some Monarch strategy here with the Enneacraft stuff. So that's essentially it. Normally I would close down with a combo video, but this deck, like, I don't feel that there's any like one card combo for this, because again, you're playing with, like, the deck has so many ways to search. Rule number 1 is to play around draw. Rule number 2 is to also play around draw. You have to play around draw with this deck. Again, drop the smaller level ones probably first, and then depends if you have Mar or Pixia as well. So you want to get these down on the field as well, and then, you know, punish your opponent if they start targeting your stuff or activating any stuff face up. And of course, with your little ones, you know, get those Clifford Scout searches, and eventually surge the field spell as well to potentially do a lot of burn damage to your opponent. And, you know, reflip and reset, or, you know, resummon, because again, their negations effect are not once per turn. So it's a really nifty archetype. I think it has potential, but it needs a bit more, and maybe a ban list looking at the other stuff. But for now, these are probably cheap, so I think get them while you still can. Okay, so, but again, feel free to leave suggestions, especially looking at the main deck and the card ratios. Okay, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. Feel free to leave a comment or a like if you enjoyed the video. Riddim signing out. Peace.